I am what you need. If you don't know my channel, you can subscribe, share, donate to my channel via the link I put in the chat section. I'm going to briefly discuss the phenomenon that is happening with, or has been happening with Devin Haney and with Demetrius Andrade. And again, I don't listen to what fighters say, I listen to what they do. Devin Haney, before became WBC champion, had been calling out all the top fighters once they came into his division. He called out Vasily Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, Tank Davis, Gary Russell Jr. said he wanted to go up and face Terrence Crawford. He called out Gary Russell Jr. Ryan Garcia was his mandatory. He called out Ryan, Jojo Diaz, all the top guys. And he was first. He first started on Showbox, on Showtime. Moved across to the Zone, and now he's at Top Rank, ESPN. And Devin Haney has always been consistent. Never tried to duck and dodge nobody, but everyone has tried to duck and dodge him. And the excuse all of these fighters have is, oh, he's boring. He don't got no power. Up to very recently, Devin Haney put on a master class. People said he wasn't active enough, and it was an action-packed fight. Yet Devin Haney threw 84 jabs in that fight. Landed 84 jabs, not throw. Landed 84 jabs and landed over 100 and something punches. Okay? I think it's 200 something punches. The fight, both power and jabs. And yet, somehow, some way, he didn't do enough. We didn't hear that critique for Stephen Fulton, who fought exactly the same fight. Dimitri Bivol, who fought exactly the same fight. Both guys didn't stop their opponents. Both guys outclassed their opponents. Devin Haney had to go across to Australia to face uh, to face George Kambosos, who had home court advantage. He had the crowd in his favor. And if Devin Haney was weak-minded, he would have had a psychological advantage, but he didn't have it in this fight. Devin Haney shut out. He put a shutout in effect. I had Kambosos winning one round, which was round two. He basically shut out Kambosos. Demetrius Andrade. Oh, by the way, the negative critique on Devin Haney, most people said he did a master class. Most people acknowledge the tremendous accomplishment that he had, which is to become undisputed, the youngest four-belt undisputed champion, the first four-belt undisputed lightweight champion, and the last undisputed lightweight champion since 30 years ago with Pernell Whitaker. So it's tremendous accomplishments that Devin Haney has accomplished. But having said that, smash the like button, people. He has critiques. They say he was running. They say he was hugging. All non-boxing language, by the way. Um, the hate that's coming to him now is, oh, he's boring. This is to, of course, discourage people from Devin Haney having any matchups with the top lightweights in the division, namely Ryan Garcia, who ducked him, Tank, who ducked him, and Lomachenko, who ducked him. All three guys ducked him. All three guys didn't want to face him. All three guys had opportunities to face him. All three guys turned it down. Because, Teofimo Lopez as well. Sorry, my bad. Teofimo is no longer a lightweight in the lightweight division, but Teofimo Lopez also turned him down. The fighter. There are two fighters. Well, actually, there are three fighters who accepted a fight with Devin Haney. And by the way, it's not just those guys. Javier Fortuna turned him down. Jorge Linares turned him down once and then came back later on and took the fight. So kudos to Jorge Linares for facing Devin Haney. You're a part of some great history, as you will find out. You're going to be attached to definitely a future Hall of Famer, definitely going to be attached to greatness. Then in addition to him, we also have Jojo Diaz, who initially turned down the Devin Haney fight, but then turned around and took it. Just like George Kambosos initially turned down the Devin Haney fight. He was looking for Lomachenko, and then when he couldn't get Lomachenko, he went for Devin Haney. Okay? Now, at that time, Devin Haney was high risk, low reward. We're going to come back to Devin Haney. I'm going to Demetrius Andrade. I'm going to take my time with this. Demetrius Andrade is another fighter who became world champion. He had been calling out a fight, Charlos. He got a fight with Jamel Charlo. But he turned around and he was with Rock Nation at the time. He tried to jump across the Rock Nation, my bad. And he did not satisfy his contract with Jamel Charlo, with the PBC. Because he was supposed to face Jamel Charlo, he didn't. And Rock Nation fell through. And now he was left standing in the cold. And he was kind of blacklisted from that. Because he didn't do good business with Jamel Charlo, who he was supposed to face. Before that, Demetrius Andrade had been doing well on HBO. It faced Vanis Martirosyan, who was the top guy at the time. And he had one or two other names that you could talk about. Very good fighter. However, after that, he tried to get a fight with Canelo at 154. When he left the 154 division, as soon as he vacated his title, Canelo fought. Smith, Liam Smith. Okay, so Canelo ducked him. Not once, but twice. Canelo has ducked him. When at 160, Canelo's talking about becoming undisputed. He was supposed to push for the WBO title. That was the last title he had to get, and he choked. He didn't try to make a fight with Demetrius Andrade. He seemed to be very hesitant to do so, and so for the second time, Canelo passed him over. And because of that, Canelo was stripped of his IBF title because he had a mandatory with Demetrius Derevchenko. And he also had to petition for the franchise champion because he also had a mandatory in Jamal Charlo. Jamal Charlo. Demetrius Andrade called out Jamal Charlo at 160 to make a fight with him, and Jamal Charlo turned it down. So Jamal Charlo ducked him. He was supposed to have a fight. Triple G's debut into the zone was supposed to be with Demetrius Andrade. GGG turned him down. So Demetrius Andrade suffers from the same phenomenon. And the whole excuse, as usual, is he's a boring fighter. Canelo even said it publicly. He said, "Oh, you're a horrible fighter. You're a boring fighter." Okay? When Demetrius Andrade confronted him face to face, asking for the fight. And Canelo was telling him to get out of here, which is cowardly. You should be able to answer him, and then after that. But anyway, I digress. Demetrius Andrade has had hardware. He's had the WBO strap. It's not the most prestigious strap. It's the WBC and the WBA. The difference between Demetrius Andrade is he is not in a position where fighters must come at him. In fact, I'm not quite sure what his status is right now and what he's doing. But I do believe he's trying to get a fight with David Benavidez somewhere down the road. Hopefully that works out. And again, David Benavidez is promoter. They're talking crazy money to face him. The reason, of course, for this phenomenon is the style that both fighters have is a very difficult style to beat. This is the reason. This goes without saying. The style that they use is a defensive style, which it's very hard to hit them, but they find it very easy to hit you. It's a very difficult style to master, but it is such. Demetrius Andrade is not the hardest puncher at 160 or 168 if he goes up to 168. Devin Haney is not the biggest puncher either. But what makes these fighters so dangerous is the fact that you can't hit them, but they could hit you. And because of that, while they may not stop you, they may build up accumulation of punishment on you, and they may embarrass you, and you may take a beating for 12 rounds, and at the end of 12 rounds, they will have their hands raised. And that is a dangerous fighter in boxing because a fighter's reputation, a fighter's worth, their value can go down in fights like that. And it's just a high risk, low reward. Now, the risk is now worth the reward with Devin Haney because Top Rank's definitely going to build him because his value has gone way up. The risk is now worth the reward. Devin Haney has all the hardware. Devin Haney is the top lightweight in the division. So the risk is worth the reward for facing Devin Haney. You have the opportunity to become undisputed at this present point in time. And two, you have the opportunity to be paid good money because of Devin Haney's status. His value has gone up, no matter what people say. But just like Demetrius Andrade, he's still an extremely dangerous fighter. Now, like Floyd Mayweather, and I'm talking about Money Mayweather, not Pretty Boy Floyd. Pretty Boy Floyd was a killer. Like Money Mayweather, most people are going to say, well, I'm going to get in there, I'll be embarrassed for 12 rounds, but more than likely I won't get stopped. That's the upside to the whole thing. Then you can turn around and say, well, I did my best, it wasn't good enough, I tried, I gave it 100%, it just didn't work out for me, right? Just like what George Kambosos did. Devin Haney is of the phenomenon that even now I'm seeing fans of certain fighters trash Devin Haney because they're intimidated by the fact that he so easily takes A-level, B-level fighters and makes them look like they're C and D-level fighters. Kambosos is a B-plus level fighter. He's a very good fighter. Very good fighter. Beat Teofimo Lopez if you're not a very good fighter. But Devin Haney handled Kambosos in a manner in which he made Kambosos look like he was some C-level or D-level amateur. Right? He made extraordinary guys look ordinary because he took away the attributes that they had from them, handcuffed them, and then did his game. And Kambosos knew this was the level of fighter that he was dealing with. And I only know one other fighter that does that, and that's Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson is at 130. Okay? But ultimately, in the end, if you're looking at, and the only fighter who has not had to duck Devin Haney is Shakur Stevenson because he's been in a lower weight class. That's the only guy who said, I'm sure he wouldn't have a problem going after Devin Haney or Tank or anybody. Because, like Devin Haney, Shakur has the style. It's very difficult to beat. It's just a very difficult style to beat. You know? So, Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson are the two most difficult styles right now around that weight class. Shakur's at 130. I think he's going to try and clean out 130. If he can't, he's going to go up to 135. And Devin, who is at 135 and dominates all his opponents, dominates them. Their opponents don't win but maybe 1 or 2 rounds. So I've heard fans say, "Oh, Tank would come in and knock out Devin." I don't see that happening. I really don't. I see Ryan Garcia saying, the fight was boring and stuff. But why is Ryan Garcia saying that? And you didn't want to face Devin Haney when you was in mandatory. You're supposed to make the fight exciting then. You should be the guy that's so exciting, but he wasn't ready for Devin Haney because you couldn't face him. You wasn't ready for him. You said, oh, maybe 1 or 2 fights down the road. You wasn't ready for Devin Haney. Rolly Romero's going in on Devin Haney, talking about how he's so boring and everything because you got your ass whooped in sparring, Rolly Romero. We know why you behaving how you behaving. We know why. You got your ass whooped in sparring. Tia don't want no piece of Devin. He had his opportunity. He wanted no piece of Devin. He faced Kambosos instead of Devin, and he still got beat by Kambosos. Okay? Let's be real here. All right? Rolly Romero, he angry about Devin because Devin whooped his ass. And Devin was like, easy work, and laughing and mugging while he's beating up Rolly Romero in sparring. It's on video. You can see it on YouTube. The sparring session. Clowning the fool. Rolly all clinching up because Devin beat his ass. Like seriously, beat his ass. In the pocket. That's why Devin called Rolly a bum. Oh, that bum? Very dismissive of him. Okay? It's boxing. And if you look, when Devin fought Kambosos, he wasn't running all around the ring. Like y'all like to say he running. He stood right in front of Kambosos. It's right in front of him. Kambosos couldn't make a movement without getting tagged, without getting popped by the jab. The problem, all right, so I'm going to explain something to you. And Kambosos tried to lure Devin in to counterpunch him. That's what he was trying to do. So he could cut the distance. Because there are 2 ways to cut distance on fighters, right? The first one is by going to them, bobbing and weaving, blocking punches, slipping and sliding. The other way is, which takes less energy, and we saw Jacques Pascal versus Sergey Kovalev. We saw several fighters. Is to lure a fighter into you so that when they extend, it's counter. You have to sharply counter them. When they extend, they're going to be within the pocket, and so you slip the punch, or you catch the punch and then you shoot. Okay, you catch and shoot, or you slip and counter. Okay, so basically, you can get them within the pocket. And once they're in the pocket, that means you can hit them, and that's where you can. So it's about either getting them to close the distance for themselves on you, and then you get to counter punch them, or you go hunting for them. And in boxing, it's a combination of both. You have to have. And the thing with Kambosos is that Kambosos, even though he sidesteps and he can get a different angle of entry, he couldn't do that with Devin because Devin was going with him. Devin was actually a step ahead of him in terms of getting the angles that he wanted. So Devin, by being first, dictated the whole entire fight. And that's something that I forgot to say. When you're dealing with guys like Floyd or Devin or even Pernell Whitaker for that matter, being first is very important. If you're not first, you can't dictate nothing, right? And then you have to kind of be aggressive initially, kind of like what, like I said, I'll try to explain to people. Logan Paul did kind of the right thing. He came out and threw a whole set of flurries on Floyd, right? But the whole idea was he threw all those flurries not to land anything on Floyd. It was to try to make Floyd feel his size and feel his power. That was all it was about. So that Floyd would respect that distance as he's closing the distance to get in on Logan, because he knew, Logan Paul knew that Floyd was going to come get him, because obviously he would want to get back as well. It's just a psychological thing. You always, if a guy hits you, you want to get him back, right? You may take a little while to try to get him back, but you're going to try and get him back. So what Logan did was he threw, he was first. He threw a host of the flurries and shit. He knew nothing was landing, but he was doing it just to show Floyd how physically strong he was. And so you're not just gonna come in on me like that, right? He knew Floyd was a defensive first, cautious kind of fighter. So he knew Floyd was gonna cut the right angles now to get to him. And of course, Floyd eventually caught up to him and beat him up like really badly. But the thing about it is, he made it to 8 rounds. Now, why this is important is because his trainer, um, Macquarie, was a defensive fighter. Even though he was long, he was rangy, he was defensive. I mean, he got knocked out by a couple of guys as well, but one of them being Donald Curry. But he was a defensive fighter. And one of the things Macquarie did was, he understood that once a guy can respect your power, once he respects your power, he's not just gonna come in willy nilly on you, right? When you look at Andy Ruiz versus, go watch this fight if you haven't watched it before. Andy Ruiz versus what's the kid's name? I can see his face. I can't remember his name right now, but he's the guy that fought, I believe it is Vladimir Klitschko. He also fought Bermane Devin. He got stopped by Bermane first stopped him. He fought Deontay Wilder. He fought Vladimir Klitschko. It's gonna come to me. It's gonna come to me. I know his name, but I just can't remember his name for nothing right now. Andy Ruiz, anyway, was walking him down, right? In the first round, in the second round. And then Andy Ruiz was being reckless. He was just coming in, not respecting his power. He got countered by him and dropped. And then Andy Ruiz realized, nah, man, I got to respect range. I can't just come in on this dude. He can knock me down. So what I'm trying to say is, you have to establish and let that guy feel you. He got to realize and respect your power. And once you've done that, whether psychologically or otherwise, you let the guy feel your strength, your power, whatever. Then you can proceed now, because he's going to come after you. You can proceed now to start boxing him on the back foot and then setting up your traps and everything. So that's how you do. And you can't stand. Don't stand in front of a guy trying to counter a guy. You got to move. You got to constantly be moving. He has to be constantly finding you, because that's the only way he can misjudge range, try to reach in at certain points in time. Kind of like what Tank did to Rolly Romero. He was moving all the time. Now, some people, like I was listening to Ness on the Boxing Voice, was saying that Tank was running from Rolly Romero. I didn't see no running. By Tank. Tank was using some of the same defensive maneuvers that Devin Haney was doing, but he was doing more on the back foot. So Tank would roll under some of Rolly's hooks. Again, it's called rolling in, rolling out. In this case, he's rolling to the side and outward. What he did actually in the knockout was he was actually rolling. He rolled out under, and then he came around with the left hook as he was rolling out, pivoting out under Rolly Romero's attack. And that's how he caught Rolly Romero. And Rolly Romero got knocked out, right? So that's what Tank did. Now Tank is, don't mix up Tank with Devin. Devin is a boxer, okay? But Tank is a boxer puncher. That's what Tank is. Tank has very good boxing skills, as you saw. And because he's a shorter guy, Rolly Romero was able to dictate a bit with his jab. But Tank started to respect distance, meaning Every time Raleigh would come in with 2 steps, Tank would take 2 steps back. This is very important to understand, respecting distance, and that tells me the Tank understands distance. So Raleigh initially, like in the first 2, 3 rounds, his jab was working. Then Tank made the adjustment of distance so that Raleigh would have to reach in to find him, and then he could start shooting straight shots down. Because when Raleigh tried to reach in, Raleigh would get into the pocket, close the distance, and then Tank could shoot his straight shot. He could slip and shoot the straight shot down the middle and tag Raleigh. So these are all the little things that Tank was doing. Um, that again, a lot of you guys need to understand. Tank is a boxer, but he can punch. He's a boxer puncher. So Tank had little tricks to to be able to deal with a guy with longer reach and longer distance and all of these little things in boxing. This is what makes boxing to me the sweet science. This is what makes it so sweet. You know, they don't call fighters pretty and sugar and sweet. They don't call boxers that because they knocking out people. That's it. See, this is what happened to boxing. A lot of the clowns in boxing today try to make boxing into MMA, rough and rugged and ugly looking. You know what I'm saying? Boxing ain't that. Okay? Boxing ain't just about flinging hands. Boxing's always been, and this is why it's even called sweet, the sweet science. When they say a guy, look, he's Sugar Ray Robinson or Sugar Ray Leonard, they saying that because they look sweet. They look pretty when they're fighting. Hence, Pretty Boy Floyd. You know what I'm saying? You know, uh, uh, they look good. They look stylish. They look classy. They just got this nice, clean movement. They're not getting touched. Muhammad Ali, I'm so pretty. I'm so pretty. Right. He hardly getting touched. You know what I mean? So that's what boxing's about. It's about hit and not get hit. Even Mike Tyson will tell you that. And you're an aggressive fighter, come forward fighter, but you're not touching him. Because he's bobbing and weaving, swiveling, and all kinds of shit. Right? He's mesmerizing and he is confusing the shit out of the boxer that's in front of him, and the boxer can't touch him. That's what we talk about. That's what makes boxing beautiful. All right? But a lot of y'all don't know shit about boxing, so the mechanics of boxing flies over your head. But just Devin Haney looks so pretty, popping that jab, dipping down, rolling out, rolling in, rolling under the hooks. They were saying that Kambosos could have caught him with a right uppercut. No, he couldn't. I'm gonna tell you why. And even if he did, he'd have righted the punch. Because what we call the swivel is a circular movement. It's like you taking your waist and hula hooping. If you know anything about swiveling, you will know you're able to ride punches much better because your body's constantly on rotation. It's almost like a roll. You see? It's like rolling punches. So when you're on the swivel, which is your head or your upper body's on a swivel, it's very hard for somebody to hit you with a punch and you not ride that punch because it's how your body's moving. You're going to ride that punch. So when Devin Haney dipped down, he didn't just dip straight down. No, he swiveled down. See? He swiveled down. He's on a rotation. So anything that hits him, some of the steam will be taken off of the punch. That's the first thing. And if you look where Devin Haney was dipping, when he was dipping, and he's dipping under the shot and he's pivoting out, when you look at where he's doing that and also how he keeps his arms to protect his chin, you understand why he wasn't going to get hurt by Kambosos. And this is boxing 101, and I keep on telling you guys this over and over. You must be able to change levels in boxing. And dipping is a part of boxing. You see, to get under shots. And what Devin Haney would do is get under Kambosos' shots. The other thing he would do is swivel away or snap back away from a shot, But he was really in the pocket. The fight took place mostly in the center of the ring. So this is the ring here. And they mostly fought in the center of the ring because Devin Haney was stepping around him like this. Stepping around him, sometimes pushing Kambosos to the ropes, And sometimes he was letting Kambosos come to him to set up a shot, counterpunch him, and then roll out from the ropes back to the center of the ring. So that's what was really going on. And Kambosos was frozen for most of the time. Kambosos was just standing up there watching Devin and Devin would just be standing up there mesmerizing Kambosos because Kambosos can't get his momentum off. He could never get his punches off. And while I believe that a fight against Tank or against Loma would be well, not so much Loma, but Tank. Why I think the fight with Tank would be a much more a lot more high level because the Tank knows some of those tricks and strategies that Devin Haney's using. I actually think Devin Haney would beat Loma quite decisively. I think he'd confuse Loma. He'd walk him back. Loma would be on the defense, and Devin Haney would actually be walking down Loma. Versus, I think he would do some similar things that Teofimo Lopez did, but I do believe he would do it more effectively, and he would never give Loma the opportunity to get the upper hand like how Teofimo Lopez did. Right? I don't see that happening. And he's got quicker feet than Tio. Tio is more flat-footed, so I think he would be quicker. And I just don't see Loma closing the distance. He would just never close the distance on Devin Haney. Devin Haney would handicap Loma, and Loma would do the same thing, the very same thing you see Kambosos is doing. Kambosos is not a fighter that stays put. He don't ever stay stationary. The only reason Kambosos stayed stationary in front of Devin Haney because he didn't know what to do, and he was just confused as hell because Devin Haney was doing all kinds of things. He started off with the jab and different kinds of jabs, and he changed it up and he started throwing right hands after the jab. Sometimes lead right hands instead of a jab. Sometimes he'd lead with a left hook. Sometimes he would throw a 1-2-1-2-1. He'd come with a jab, right hand jab. Sometimes he would come with a jab, right hand, left hook to the body. He mix it up. He'd feint the jab up top, throw a right to the body, and just all kinds of crazy things Devin Haney was doing that just confused the shit out of Kambosos. He didn't know what Devin Haney was going to throw at him, and he didn't know when he was going to throw at him, and that froze him up. So he was just a punching bag, standing up there confused because Devin Haney was just doing so many different things. People were saying he wasn't throwing right hands, he wasn't doing this. Y'all is tripping. He wasn't doing 3-4. He wasn't doing 4 or 5 punch combinations, but the kind of combinations and the kind of shots that he was putting together, was so varied that Kambosos was just confused. And the jab was always there, but the jab was it was consistent, but it was the speed of it, the rhythm of it, the timing of it was all over the place. It was varied so much, and the type of it was varied so much that Kambosos didn't know what the fuck was going on, and he was just getting popped. You saw his whole face was getting messed up by the jab. And then Devin Haney was calculated in what he was throwing. He was throwing. He knew that Kambosos could get hit with a overhand right off the weak side, so he would spin to weak side and try to nail him over the top with the right hand where Kambosos can't even respond. Kambosos had to circle out or clinch up against the ropes, and Devin Haney put his weight down on it. It's just a lot of things that Devin Haney was doing in there that allowed him to be the boss, and Kambosos just never had really a response to it. Now, what a lot of people are worried about, or what a lot of people would like to know is, what happens if Devin Haney, he's dictating that something goes, he gets hurt or something in the fight, and the other guy gets to throw some licks on Devin Haney. How would he respond? And I'm going to tell you right now, from all I know about Devin Haney and sparring and all of that, he can handle all that. He can handle it. He got the chin. He got everything to handle it. He's still young, though. He's not Pretty Boy Floyd. So if you're looking for a Pretty Boy Floyd performance, that ain't happening. He's Devin Haney. Devin Haney's more calculated than the Pretty Boy Floyd. He's more like Money Mayweather, but more calculated. And Shakur Stevenson's the same thing. They're calculated fighters. Shakur has a different style to Devin. And Shakur's perfecting different things. So Shakur is like perfecting inside fighting. And he's also perfecting how to walk down fighters, how to box on the back foot. Like he's perfecting it, like he's really perfecting it to a science. Whereas Devin is much more versatile than Shakur. He's way more versatile than Shakur. But Devin, he will even improvise certain things on the spot, and you can see it's a very varied offense. Devin Haney doesn't have the same offense over and over. He changes up his rhythm. He changes up. So Devin's actually a much more versatile fighter than Shakur is, but Shakur is just so sharp and refined in what he does, and he's perfecting what he does, and he's building his power and strength. And you know what's weird for me is that there's the demands of Devin Haney knockout guys. Shakur ain't knocking out nobody, but people talking about Shakur. You know what I'm saying? Because it depends on who's promoting you. Top Rank, when you go with Top Rank, they do a good job of promoting their fighters, and people don't really say negative things about them. That's why Bud Crawford, to this day, is seen so highly. It's because of Top Rank. Top Rank, they do a good job of not letting people attack their fighters and so on. But obviously, Devin Haney is, well, he's currently right now the best lightweight in the division. Whether you like it or not, that's just the way how it is. That's how he's ranked. He's the lineal champion, and he is undisputed. There's no, you can't dispute that he is the best because literally he is in the top spot of the division. You cannot rank anybody above him. You know, and I know some people are really offended. I know some tank people now realizing that Devin Haney is taking the throne. That they're pretty much offended by that, and but again, Devin Haney versus Tank would be a very compelling fight. Tank has a lot of experience in the pro game at the championship level, and Tank can box. He really can. You know, and I don't agree with everybody that Tank's always down on the cards like Rolly Romero's outboxing Tank. I didn't see that. I gave Rolly Romero 2 rounds. Okay, the first and the second. By the third round, Tank had already evened it up, and by the fourth, fifth, and sixth, Tank had already got his rhythm and everything, and was having fun in there. That's why he was laughing, talking to the crowd and all that because he had already taken over that fight, right? Against Devin Haney, he's going to have to be much more tactical. He can't depend on a knockout. He has to win rounds. So it's going to be, and he has disadvantages slash advantages. Let me explain. So Tank, he normally get low underneath punches, so that's how he can close the distance to get to you. So Tank can do a little bit of bobbing and weaving, a little bit of slipping and sliding, so he can actually get to Devin Haney. He'll have to calculate that pathway and quickly, and get to Devin Haney, and then throw his body shots because he likes to break you down to the body first. So that's what he'll have to do. Of course, if Devin Haney respects distance, starts pivoting around Tank, even turning Tank, it could be a long night. So it depends on how that fight goes because I'm telling you, Devin could box Tank's socks off if Tank is not on point. And if Tank is on point, that fight could be interesting. Do I think that Tank would knock out Devin Haney? No, I don't think he would knock him out. You're talking about the top tier of the top tier. Devin Haney, if Tank knew he could knock out Devin Haney, he would take the fight. That's a hard fight, I'm telling you. There are 2 guys I don't think Tank knocks out right now in the lightweight division. I don't see him knocking out Ryan Garcia, and I don't see him knocking out Devin Haney. And he always say, "Well, Ryan Garcia keep your chin up in the air." You know, he throws. People think he throws predictable combinations. No, he doesn't. It's a level of competition that Ryan Garcia is facing right now. You don't belong in the ring with me. Let me just get you out of the way, right? That's all Ryan Garcia is doing because the level of competition he's facing right now. I'm gonna ask you guys again to go back to the amateurs and watch Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia versus Virgil Ortiz, Ryan Garcia versus whoever, and you will see the guy has skills. The guy has a lot of skills, and he's a big lightweight as well, like Devin Haney. Devin Haney and Ryan are the biggest lightweights in the division. So you have to understand that both guys can box. It's just that Ryan's more of a boxer puncher than Devin is. He's quick too. He's got very quick hands, not as quick feet, but he has quick hands. Ryan again has some of the boxing fundamentals Devin Haney has. Devin Haney's much better boxer than Ryan right now. I can tell you that right now, as we speak, Devin Haney's a better boxer than Ryan. But maybe because Devin Haney has been a world champion, went through the gears, also had all these different trainers and all of that. So that'd be another reason why he's probably better than Ryan right now. Ryan's a step or two behind Devin. But Ryan would give anybody problems because of his dimensions, his size, his speed, his boxing IQ. He has great boxing IQ if you haven't realized. And like against Tank, he's talking about he get Tank out of day in one round. That's not happening. Okay. um, um, but Ryan versus Tank would be a very, very good fight. Not just because it would be a big fight, but because Ryan actually has skills to make this fight very competitive. And that would be Tank's highest quality fighter he has faced in terms of the ring magazine rankings at lightweight. He would be Ryan's what? Probably the third or fourth best, third, fourth, or fifth best lightweight in the lightweight division right now. If you got to include Lomachenko somewhere up there because Lomachenko's got so much experience behind him, and so much championship wins. You got yeah, put Lomachenko above. I don't think Lomachenko's a better boxer than Ryan. I think Ryan's a better boxer than Lomachenko. I think if Lomachenko went up against Ryan, I think Ryan beats Lomachenko. So, um, and Lomachenko's old right now. He's got a lot of years behind him now. So, you're talking about old Lomachenko. You know, I just don't see really, Lomachenko right now, especially with the war and everything going on, and not really having the best facilities, best stuff, the training. I think Lomachenko right now, and especially when he ain't fought in a little bit, in a minute. Um, I think Lomachenko right now, his time is over. He's kind of reached the end of his reign. He's just about collecting paychecks. He'll do the best he can, probably pass on some knowledge and experience to the fighters, and pass the torch on. You know what I mean? Devin Haney would be a very good opponent for Lomachenko to pass the torch to. Not you know, because he may not knock him out, but because also I think that Devin Haney's probably the most promising, and it will be great for Lomachenko to pass his knowledge over to Devin Haney. But what I'm saying is, I'm not going to put it like that because I'm a fan. If I was Lomachenko, this is an opportunity to be undisputed. Lomachenko's whole goal, his whole desire was to become undisputed, right? So finally, Bob Arum can line it up, Top Rank can line it up, ESPN can line it up for Lomachenko to become undisputed by facing Devin Haney. So how I would see it is, just at least Bob Arum would fulfill his promise to Lomachenko to get that shot at undisputed. That's what Lomachenko might get this opportunity of a lifetime because this is what he wanted. I don't know if this fighter he wanted to face to get it, but this is what he wants. So, um, that would be even if again, even if he falls short, he doesn't get undisputed, and trust me, Lomachenko will, he can make a statement about the Ukraine Russia war, at least, and at least he can pass on some of the knowledge of his fighting style to Devin Haney. Because if you notice, at the end of every fight, Devin Haney would ask the fighters he faced, he'd say, "How did I do?" And then he would say, something about you I didn't recognize. And he would talk, because at the end of the Linares fight, he was talking to Linares. At the end of the Jojo Diaz fight, he was talking to Jojo Diaz. Because Devin Haney remains friendly with the fighters he's faced because you never know when you need them for sparring partners or you need them for assistance with something. You know what I mean? Devin is a guy who gathers information. He's always gathering knowledge. He's always asking questions, even to the guy he's facing, he's beating. He's asking them certain things because he's learning things from facing them and from fighting them. Even George Kambosos, he was like, "Man, you got good head movement, man. You was slipping all those punches and stuff." And he's commending George Kambosos on certain boxing things. And that's a real boxing head. He's a real boxing head when it comes to that. And I think that Devin, there's a reason Floyd trained Devin. Floyd trained Devin. Floyd passed on some knowledge to Javante to get Javante on his way, and Floyd passed on some knowledge to Raleigh Romero. And there's a reason Floyd do that with them fighters because Floyd sees potential in it, and then if they're hungry enough and they come and ask him to train them, why not? You know what I mean? And Devin wasn't going to back down on that. You know what I mean? And all I'm saying is, them guys are special guys, Uh, Shakur got Andrade Ward, but if I was Shakur, man, I'd go across, you know, whenever I could find time and pick Floyd's brains. But Shakur, all them guys, they talk to Floyd all the time and they pick his brains and they try to get knowledge from him. And that's the right thing to do. And Floyd, he's establishing everything, so he, of course, is happy to share knowledge on the game with these fighters. You know, because there's so much to the game. There's so much nuance to the game, man. There's so much stuff to know about. You know, when you're fighting, and he knows quite a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? There's a reason for it make them fights look easy. So when you hear, for example, you hear people say, "Well, Floyd never really fought any great fighters in his day." He did. He fought a lot of great fighters. You know, Miguel Cotto's a great fighter. You know, Juan Manuel Marquez is an all-time great. These are all-time greats we're talking about. Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya, Canelo Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao. These are all-time greats. But what happened was, when they entered into the ring with him, and then some people bought into his shit talk. Arturo Gatti is a great fighter as well. Um, what happened was he handcuffed them of their abilities. He shut down what they do well, and then he took over and started using some of the things they do well against them, in addition to what he does. So he made the fights one-sided, like what Devin Haney's doing right now to this day. If you see Devin Haney versus Tank, for example, okay, if you were to see Devin Haney versus Tank, at the end of that fight, y'all gonna say, "Oh, Tank is shit," right? The fight would have been competitive. I don't even disagree with that. It's gonna be competitive because Tank knows his shit. But Tank ain't gonna knock out Devin Haney. The knockout that y'all guys was looking forward to, you ain't gonna see. You will see Devin Haney walk down Tank at certain points in time. You're gonna see Tank. He's gonna get some licks in. He's gonna get some shots in. But the problem with it is, Tank ain't gonna look like spectacular like the Tank that y'all see with Raleigh Romero. You're not gonna see that Tank at all, right? You're not gonna see that Tank at all, because that's just the way how these kinds of fighters are. Andre Ward, I'm not Andre Ward too. You fight Andre Ward, your ass ain't gonna look like how everybody knows you. You know what I mean? This is the it's called the Floyd phenomenon in my way, because Floyd was ducked and stuff. I mean, he was Pretty Boy Floyd. He was even more destructive, but he was more reckless as well. He took more risks. Um, but the Money Mayweather Floyd, which is what basically Devin Haney is sort of kind of he's not a version of it, but the approach to it is similar. Shakur Stevenson has a similar approach where they keep the fight so basic. They can keep it so basic. They can do the minimum amount of things, but so well done that they have their opponent in such a firm grasp that some people would think that the fight is too one-sided. Too one-sided. And so people will look at the opponent and say, "Oh, he ain't shit." Like after the Kambosos fight, they're like, "Kambosos ain't shit. That was just lucky." No, he is the shit. Kambosos is the shit. Kambosos is the shit. But you see, Devin Haney made him look like he couldn't do nothing. He put him in a position where the things that he does very well, he couldn't do them. The opportunities. Okay, so I'm gonna explain it to you. It's very simple. Devin Haney said at the end of the fight. I'm gonna put it in a simple way, because if I was to talk boxing with you guys, fuck, y'all ain't gonna follow. So I'm just gonna keep it simple, right? Devin Haney said Kambosos' thing is he liked to shoot that counter right hand. He loved to throw that left hook. And I took those two things away from him. There was no counter right hand, if you notice, most of the fight. He did catch him in a counter uppercut. And he took away his left hook. Okay? And Kambosos don't really jab, but he have a good jab, but he don't really he jabs, he does jab, and he jab hooks, but he got to get in a range to jab. He got to be at a certain range to jab. And Devin Haney never gave him that range, right? He did throw in some sneaky little jabs every now and then that was really beautifully timed and just well put. And again, Kambosos don't do nothing if he's not gonna be successful, okay, at doing it. So you didn't see all those foot speed, you didn't see all those foot angles, You didn't see all of that shit because Devin Haney took it away. I'm gonna explain to you how he did it, and some of it was said. Now I'm kind of going. I'm gonna try and keep it simple. So Devin Haney circled Kambosos a certain way. He circled away from Kambosos' right hand. Right? You circle how you circle your opponent sets up your offense, and it also, because remember, it's boxing's not standing in front of each other, just standing there and then throwing punches. Okay, that's not boxing. Okay, right? You are moving all the time. You're always going in a circle. How you circle your opponent tells me what your intentions are. Devin Haney was circling Kambosos for the most part to Kambosos' weak side for two reasons. The first one was that Kambosos likes to throw a counter right. So if Kambosos threw a counter right, guess what? Devin Haney could roll under the counter right and throw his own right and catch him. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, and also he's circling away from it, so Kambosos would have to travel. His right hand would have to travel more to get to Devin Haney. The second thing is he's also circling to Kambosos' weak side. So if he can get Kambosos to try to counter him, while Kambosos is countering him, he can slip across, he can step across to the weak side and land a shot on Kambosos. So what that does, that's the first thing. The second thing is when he's throwing his jab, it's hard to counter over the jab because there's a lot more distance to throw. And what the jab did was it set up a bait. So Devin Haney inherently was doing a bait and counter throughout the fight by being first. So he was setting a bait. So the jab sometimes is a pouring jab, sometimes it's a prominent jab to snap back Kambosos' head to tell him move backwards, move backwards. Okay, so Devin Haney was it's like a language in there. He's doing all kinds of things to Kambosos, right, with the jab. Sometimes he just touch him with the jab to bait him in so that he would throw the right hand. And once he throw the right hand, then he could counter him. Sometimes he would just pop the jab from a different angle. Sometimes he pop a jab looking like it's an uppercut that he's throwing to pop Kambosos' head up so he could throw the right hand coming down the center. And I could talk, so much about this because he was picking him off from the outside, keeping a certain distance, and keeping Kambosos. He was disciplining him and keeping him in a certain place in the ring. He was literally disciplining him, right? So this is the sweet science of boxing. This is the thing that like a lot of people, a lot of fans, they miss out on, and it's so much fun. And you know what? I do break down videos and I show you guys what it is that these guys are actually doing to each other. Um, so Kambosos was constantly reactive. He was always reacting to what Devin Haney, because Devin Haney's the one dictating. And so he was confused as fuck at a certain point in the fight. And he was just standing up there in front of Devin Haney. Kambosos don't ever stand up. Kambosos don't ever freeze up. Kambosos don't do that. He's an activity kind of guy. But he couldn't get his momentum. He just couldn't get nothing going. Because Devin Haney from the get-go was... and then he was using different rhythms because he didn't want Kambosos to time him, to counter him, because he knew Kambosos could counter very well. So that's how he took away the right hand. Now, how did he take away the left hook? Well, there are two ways. One, every time Kambosos' stance, I got to show you guys this. Now, Bivol did this with Canelo. Shakur did this with Oscar Valdez. And Devin Haney did this with Kambosos. So Kambosos, if Kambosos is looking, this is an inherent problem with a lot of fighters. Okay, I'm in the orthodox stance. My front foot is closer to you. Okay, when I'm leaning in like this, which is what both Oscar Valdez and Canelo Alvarez did wrong. All my weight is on my front foot here. Okay? All my weight's on my front foot when I lean in like this. Okay? Whether I have the 2 guard or whether I'm half guard like this, trying to bait you in by dropping the shoulder like this. So my shoulder, you can't see the angle of the camera. It's not going to allow you to see it. But I'm exaggerated. So here, I drop the shoulder. This is for you to hit me with a jab, right? But it's a bait. I'm baiting you in, right? I'm trying to get you to throw a punch so I can counter you. Because Kambosos It's a counter puncher, right? Okay, so I'm leaning in over my shoulder here, okay? Or I got the two guard, I'm leaning in like this. It's all to bait you in. It's to say, look me here, like Pacquiao would say, hit me here, right? Okay. So, so what happened was, when you lean in like this, well, when you lean in like this, all your weight's on your front foot. All your weight's on your front foot. It's not on your back foot because you leaned in, okay? Which means all your weight is on one foot. You can't go nowhere. You got to shift that weight back onto the back foot. You understand? To step off and back off. There's only one place you can go, and that's forward, because all your weight's on your front foot. So you're actually frozen into place at that point in time. You got that? Everybody understand that? You frozen into place. You frozen into place on your front foot because all your weight's here. You have to shift the weight back to your back foot. You got to shift the weight onto your back foot to do anything else. Or shift your weight to the center, right? Because you're on the front foot. You're not going to push back. You could push back, but all your weight, you can snap back and shift the weight backwards. Okay. So once it's all timing. So when Kambosos, when he's doing this, he's putting his head into different head slots. Okay? He's got his hands here. All right? Devin Haney would catch him here. When his face, he slipped here, but his face, because the way how the front foot is, you can't fully slip the punch. You can't fully slip to the outside of the punch. Look, this is central. See? So this is me here, right? I can slip this way. I'm off center line. But it's harder to slip this way. You're going to clip me, right? Similarly with Canelo Alvarez, they all doing this, but all the weight is on the front foot. So if I throw a prodding jab at you, okay? If I throw a prodding jab, all your weight's on your front foot. If I could actually push you off balance. I could actually push you off balance. That's boxing jams. Check out boxing jams, right? Boxing jams cover this. I could push you off balance because most of your weight's on your front foot. But here's the thing, with Kambosos, and check out hidden jams. There's hidden jams and there's boxing jams. Check both of them out. But with Kambosos, all right, Kambosos, all his weight's on his front foot, but he's trying to slip the punch this way, but you can't slip it as much as you can here. Right? You see the dynamics? I can slip the punch here very easily, right? I'm off center line here, but if I come here, I can't really, I gotta exaggerate it to get it off. So I'm still more or less on center line. I can still be hit with a jab, okay? So because of that, Devin Haney would time him, and he's watching at that head slot change rhythm, and he keep on bopping him down the center line. He keep on bopping him down the center line. Once he went onto the front foot, and he tried to slip this way. So that's what was happening nonstop in that fight, and Kambosos was getting popped at a certain timing. You know, he was popped. Now Kambosos was still sometimes he would slip the head a little bit more to one side so he wouldn't get caught clean. But the point is, Devin Haney was popping him with that jab and catching him with the jab. He was timing him. And this is what Devin Haney was talking about. He was saying some things that Kambosos do, he not even aware that he do that. They studied him. So they knew what he do and what he don't do and what he subconsciously do. And there's other things that Kambosos do that Devin Haney exploited quite a lot. And you can always check boxing jams, hidden gems, to see what those things are. And that's what boxers do. They watch it. They're not just watching at, people call it flaws, but they're just looking at your habits and your patterns. And by popping, by hitting Kambosos like that constantly, he take him out of his rhythm. He take Kambosos can't even find his rhythm to start, because he always do that little head movement thing to get momentum. Canelo always do that inching in thing to get momentum. So that's why Canelo wasn't throwing no jabs against Bivol. He wasn't throwing enough jabs against Bivol because Bivol took him out of his rhythm. You see how I'm telling you, man, boxing is 90% mental because everybody got a habit. They have a pattern. You look at like certain fighters after they throw a combination, for example. Some fighters after they throw let's say a different punch combination right here, right? They gonna bounce. They bounce like this, right? After they throw their combinations, you catch them while they're doing that in rhythm. You catch them in now. You have them reset all over again, and then they can't get the momentum anymore because, like I said before, boxing's a mental game. It's a mental game. Okay, it's about what you know, and it's about how to break somebody's rhythm, how to break, how to keep them from doing what they normally do, what they practice doing, what they train to do. Because once you break that rhythm, now they got to start all over again, and they keep on they keep on looping, they keep on looping all over again. They keep on restarting, and they never get going. They never get going, and that's what Devin Haney did to Cambosis. Bevo did to Canelo, Shakur did to Oscar Valdez. They can never get their rhythm going because you keep on disrupting. It's called disrupting their rhythm. You dig? So, anyways, man, Devin Haney's a very difficult fighter to face. I would love to see what would happen with him versus Tank. I would love to see what would happen with him versus Ryan. I believe he would outbox Lomachenko because Lomachenko follows certain rules. And Teofimo Lopez was the first guy to really show the blueprint on how to beat Lomachenko. Now, Teofimo Lopez, the problem with Teo was Teo abandoned his jab, saying that he would use his defense to fight Loma, and he got Loma back into the fight in rounds, I believe it was 8, 9, 10, and 11. Loma got back into the fight because Teo stopped jabbing. If he had kept jabbing and doing what he was supposed to do, occupying Loma, jabbing and pushing him back, you know, being the boss in there, yeah, the fight might have been a little bit more boring, but I mean, again, the key to beating Lomachenko is a simple jab. A jab and the right circling of Lomachenko to take away weak side access from him, and he can't do shit. He can't do shit. It's just the way I would go. Um, so, you know, I know because the problem with a lot of these fighters is they're mid-range fighters. To make exciting fights, guys like to fight in the pocket, and guys who are pocket fighters, if you take away their advantage, which is engaging them in the pocket, all of a sudden they can't do nothing. They just can't do nothing. And that's the problem with Lomachenko. He a pocket fighter like most of the Eastern European fighters. They fight in the pocket. And, you know, guys like Usyk and guys like Bivol, they're exceptions to the rule. They actually fight outside the pocket as well as they can fight inside the pocket. And that's what makes Bivol a better fighter than Lomachenko. That's what makes Usyk a better fighter than Lomachenko because they can do more things. You have to be specialized, not just in one area, but at least in 2 or 3 areas. And Lomachenko is not specialized in 2 or 3 areas. He's specialized in one particular area, which is pocket work. And he's really good at that, stepping around. And you let him do what he do, he'll run away with you. Pacquiao, same thing. Pacquiao specializes in mid-range fighting. You know, when you let him run wild, he'll run wild, man. He'll make you look stupid. You know what I mean? But Floyd reined him in, Ugas reined him in. You know, control him. And with those guys, you don't try to go toe to toe with them. You always step around, give him a new angle, give him a new look, run him into something, step around him, and that's the thing that neutralizes those guys and beats them. You know, when you deal with counter punches like Floyd, Devin, guys like Ryan, you know, counter punches like even Terrence Crawford, you gotta make them, you gotta make them respect your power and then make them come to you. That's the only way you really have a good shot at beating them. You try to pressure them, that's their game, man. That's what they love. They love you to come get them. They'll make your life a living hell. You gotta, and why it backfired for Cambosis is because Devin Haney did his homework on Cambosis and knew what Cambosis do, how he counterpunch, how he sets up his counterpunches, what kind of positioning he has. So when you're doing this, when you're trying to set traps and stuff, you gotta move. You can't be stationary. You can't just be standing up watching the dude be fuddled. Take a step back. When a guy's coming into the pocket, take a step back. on him. That's counter punching. You know, you can't stand up in there. You know, Teofimo Lopez, he was just standing and trying to shell up on Cambosis, and Cambosis ran a number on him because you have to move. You have to move, and you better know how to move. You know, and T was not that great moving off the back foot. And Lomachenko showed that, and many guys. Nakatani showed that. Several guys showed that. You know, he's not good at fighting off the back foot. That's it. You know, he's good at shelling up a little bit and standing there, but he's more a guy that walk fighters down. And again, Teofimo Lopez is a mid-range fighter. He's not really a guy that will box and move and box on the outside. He do a little something, something. I see his kind of acrobatic sort of way of boxing on the outside, but he not really an outboxer. You know what I mean? So he can't really set up the KO. Tank is an outboxer. Tank actually shows you how to box on the outside because he's got a shorter reach. It's harder for him to really throw punches from the outside. He has to close distance, get to the inside, throw his shots, and then step back out. So he's more of a pocket fighter anyway. But he can kind of box you on the outside. I've seen him do it in the amateurs and stuff. But he has to step in. He still has to step in, close the distance, or counterpunch you as you're coming in. So, but that's the thing with Tank. You know, Tank is a very special fighter in that respect because he's such a short, small, compact dude. And yet, you know, he would come in with a leaping left hook. You know what I mean? He closed the distance really rapidly. Cut certain angles and close the distance on you. So that's what makes him kind of special, you know. And he does remind me a bit of Pretty Boy Floyd. He more of Pretty Boy Floyd. Devin Haney's more of a Money Mayweather. Shakur's more of a Money Mayweather. But Tank is more like Pretty Boy. So anyway, that's what I got for you guys. And I'm gonna catch you guys later. I'm what you need. I just thought I would talk about that because, uh, you know, Demetrius Andrade is a very much avoided fighter for the reason of the style that he brings to the table. Shakur Devin, and Demetrius Andrade are special fighters. Unfortunately for Demetrius Andrade, you know, who I like Demetrius Andrade a lot. They've been saying, you know, I'm surprised they're not saying that about Shakur, but they're saying, you know, Devin's boring, you know, Andrade's boring. Nobody want to see Andrade. Nobody want to see Devin. But truth be told, they just ducking. It's just duck talk. It's cowardly talk. Ain't nobody want to step up and face Andrade because Andrade have a style. I'll make you look stupid. And on top of that, you're going to lose, more than likely, because it's so difficult to beat. It's a very difficult style. The fact that Demetrius Andrade would take on, and I would love to see that, David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade. Now, y'all going to say, when Demetrius Andrade beats David Benavidez, which would be shocking to everybody except for me, they will say, oh, David Benavidez, he ain't shit. He ain't shit. I mean, he couldn't get Demetrius Andrade out of there. Blah, 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 blah. No. Just Demetrius Andrade made David Benavidez look ordinary. You know what I mean? Because with those kinds of boxes, remember, those kinds of boxes, hit and not get hit kind of boxers, who have great cardio and know their angles very well, it don't mean shit that they can't knock out their opponent. It don't matter who their opponent is. That opponent could be the guy that got hell in his hands. That opponent could be Deontay Wilder and have a couple of boxing skills. It don't matter because they're going to treat him just like everybody else. You know, because the difference between them and, say, a Tommy Hearns is Tommy Hearns tried to impose his will on other people and he tried to bully people. You know, Jamal Charlo tried to bully people. You know, that their attitude is to kill their opponent. But with a world-class boxer, with guys who box, their objective is to win. Right? And it doesn't matter who you are. You could be, you know, the greatest puncher of all time and even have a little bit of boxing skill. They're going to make you look stupid. They're going to make you look average. They're going to make you look like a U-class fighter. I didn't even say F. You're going to look U-class in there. You're going to be swinging at the air. You're going to be missing so many shots. And they're going to be tattooing up your ass. And they could do it for 12, 15, 20, 40 rounds. They just go nonstop. Because what? They're well conditioned. They know their shit. They know their boxing, and you don't know as much as they do. So it don't matter how much power you have. It don't matter how quick you are. It don't matter how much you knocked out people or how strong you are. That shit don't mean shit. It's what you know in boxing. And when I say what you know, I mean you're able to execute it. You've been taught certain things, and you're able to execute those things. And there's so much detail in boxing. There's a reason why certain fighters were always very confident in their abilities because they've been able to execute it time and time again. They know what they're doing in there. You understand? So if you see a spectacular fighter looking not spectacular against another fighter, always ask yourself, and you know the fighters come out with excuses. Like Teofimo Lopez came out, oh, I thought I won the fight. It was a conspiracy to give Devin Haney the belts, and I had pneumonia in my lungs and all kinds of shit. Man, shut up. You lost, and you lost not because of none of those things. Because you could have won the fight with all of those things. I've seen fighters go through even worse. They had like fever and all kinds of shit, and they won fights. The reason why you lost, because you fought stupid. That's the truth. The other guy outmaneuvered you and outplayed you. So at the end of the day, that's why you lost. You know, stop with the fucking excuses because you're not gonna get you. It's not gonna make you a better fighter. Exactly. It's not gonna make you a better fighter. Kambosos got into Teofimo Lopez's head. Teofimo Lopez has done a lot of stupid stuff. Okay, they were riding a high, and I don't know what happened, and they went off their rails. They tried to make a fight outside of Top Rank. It backfired. They were trying to get more money, trying to get more paid. Eventually, they lost their contract with ESPN at the point in time, apparently, and so they had to do it on his own. It was a bidding, and ESPN didn't, it went to purse bid. Triller got it, and the stuff with Triller backfired. And from there on, and then I remember Teofimo Lopez said he had an injury or something, so he backed out the fight. He didn't want to face Kambosos because it was the lesser of two evils. And Kambosos is a hell of a fighter. Kambosos was hungry, undefeated, took his craft seriously. And Devin Haney was the next shark waiting in the wings. It was either Devin Haney or Kambosos. You had to face your mandatory, or you take on Devin Haney. But you got to decide. Now, you know what's so funny to me? Is that I think it's because of the IBF belt. And the IBF didn't recognize the franchise. Now, if Kambosos was a WBC champion, he wouldn't have. The WBC could have said, "Oh, you can't, you're not gonna face Kambosos." But the IBF didn't recognize no fucking franchise belt. The WBA don't recognize no damn franchise belt. You understand what I'm saying? It's only the WBC. so the IBF was like, hey, we got a mandatory here. Kambosos got a shot at the title. Otherwise, we strip you of the IBF. We strip you of the IBF belt. And Devin Haney was like, Teofimo Lopez had to face Kambosos. So thank God for the IBF, man. Because if it wasn't for the IBF, this motherfucker either had to unify. See, the IBF would have been like, okay, you want to do unification with the WBC champion? Because they didn't recognize the damn franchise belt. So anybody saying out there, oh, Devin Haney, Kambosos and Teofimo Lopez, they had the franchise. Well, why the fuck did Teofimo Lopez have to face his mandatory then? If the IBF recognized Teofimo Lopez as the WBC champion, right? As a franchise champion, then Teofimo Lopez should be able to face whoever the fuck he wants. He shouldn't have no mandatories. Yeah? So we can put that to rest right there. He had to face his IBF mandatory, and because of that, he ain't recognized as no goddamn undisputed champion. Stop that bullshit. Yeah, but anyway, as I was saying, because we all know the WBA super champion is recognized as a super champion. You know. Anyway, that's besides the point. The point I'm making is that he had a choice between Devin Haney or Cambosis, and both of them was hungry. Both of them was hungry, you know. And Lopez thought he could get rid. He knew he couldn't get rid of Campbell. He should have done his homework on Cambosis. He knew Cambosis was no joke. He should have known that. He should have known that. Cambosis had his number, boy. Had his number. So all I'm saying is, this is boxing, and certain fighters they got difficult styles. And if you know anything about boxing, you will know Devin Haney's style is difficult. Uh, Shakur's style is a very difficult style. Uh, um, Tank has some skill. I'm not gonna say that Tank. Uh, but I don't think of Tank in the same area as because Tank is a boxer puncher. So everybody always want to go see Tank, even though Tank is not facing the top tier guys, right? Let's be real. He didn't face no Cambosis. He ain't face no Tio. He ain't face no Ryan. He ain't face no Devin. He ain't face no Loma, right? Tank hasn't been facing the top lightweights in the lightweight division. In fact, he ain't faced a single top light. If you look at the top 10 lightweights in the lightweight division, he hasn't faced a single one of them, right? The top 10 lightweights in the lightweight division, Tank hasn't faced a single top 10 lightweight, right? This is just facts, okay? So you can't put Tank as the number one lightweight in the lightweight division. That's bullshit. Because he hasn't faced the number one lightweight in the lightweight division. Shout out to Long3316. Why do you think Tank has a hard time getting big fights? Tank? Tank don't have a hard time getting big fights. Come on, man. Tank? No, man. Tank, constantly. Tank is the big fight. Tank is the highest paid. Tank's the highest paid. No, but Devin might be the highest. Was the highest paid. But Tank don't have problems making big fights. It's good. He's with Mayweather Promotions, man. When you talk, you mean the top tier guys? Tank don't have no difficulty getting the top tier guys either. Tank, Leonard LB and Mayweather Promotions, they've been lining them up with what they have over there in the PBC. You know, no, Tank actually did face a top 10 lightweight. My bad. Pitbull Cruz. He faced Pitbull Cruz. Pitbull Cruz was a top 10 lightweight and is a top 10 lightweight. My bad. Pitbull Cruz make a big buzz in Mexico. So he did face a top 10 lightweight in the lightweight division. My bad. He did face one. Pitbull Cruz. That's true. But the other two were not top 10 lightweights. Rolly Romero is not a top 10 lightweight. I guess if you actually, let me put it this way: Rolly Romero was in, I believe, the WBA top. Obviously, in the WBA he was a top 10 lightweight. Okay, in the WBA he's a top 10 lightweight because Rolly made his way up to interim champion. So even though he shouldn't have been, it should have been Marinez who was Marinez should have been the dude in that spot, but Rolly got it. He did want to run it back with Marinez, but Marinez was involved in another fight or something like that. But Rolly Romero was a top 10 lightweight in the WBA. Overall, I don't think on anybody's list Rolly Romero is a top 10 lightweight. I don't think he's a top 10 lightweight on the rings list. I don't think he's a top 10 lightweight on the Transnational Boxing Board's list. I don't think he's a top 10 lightweight on BoxRec. I don't think he's a top 10 lightweight on, but he's in the top 20. He's a top 20 lightweight. Okay? And when Tank faced him, I don't think he was a top 10 lightweight either. So, but he's a good fighter. Rolly Romero's a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. He's learning still and growing, but he's not. So Tank has faced a top 10 lightweight. I think at the time, I believe Pitbull was somewhere in the top 10, lower end of the top 10. Yeah. But, and Ryan Garcia, he faced the top 10 lightweight in Luke Campbell. Luke Campbell was, I believe, he was somewhere in the top 5. He was a top 5 lightweight. So, Ryan's actually faced better competition than Tank at lightweight. But again, Tank has not really been at lightweight very long either. Ryan's a career lightweight, so it's a big difference. But Devin has faced the best lightweights in the division. I think Devin, out of all the top lightweights in the lightweight division, the guys with the best resume are Lomachenko first, and then Devin is second, and then I believe Tank. I think Ryan is third, and then Tank is fourth. Ryan's going to be facing Javier Fortuna, who's also another top 10 lightweight. But Javier Fortuna's coming off a loss, so this is very important to remember. He ain't trying to face JoJo Diaz. And JoJo Diaz is in the same promotional company as Ryan. So I don't know why Ryan don't want that smoke with JoJo. He ain't want that smoke with JoJo, boy. JoJo D is one of those. Actually, I think obviously he's in the top 10. He's a top 10 lightweight as well. Even though he's only had 2 fights at lightweight. JoJo Diaz I'm high on JoJo Diaz. I'm high on him because you just look at his resume, you look at his record, you look at where this dude come from. I know JoJo Diaz is a guy that could spoil anybody's. He could spoil anybody's career. I'm surprised, man. Devin did really well against JoJo. JoJo did better against Devin than Kambosos did, and I told y'all, JoJo a better fighter than Kambosos. Y'all didn't listen to me. JoJo cut the distance much better than Kambosos. You know, Devin actually had a harder fight with JoJo than he did with Kambosos. I told y'all that. But nobody was listening to me. You know, the guy who won the most amount of rounds against Devin Haney is JoJo Diaz. Jorge Linares never did it. Kambosos never did it. JoJo did it. And JoJo finished pretty strong. I mean, he was catching Devin with some left hands. JoJo don't have that kind of one-hitter quitter pop, but if he had a little bit more pop, he'd have had Devin in a lot more trouble. I'm telling y'all, JoJo was no joke. Y'all don't listen to me. JoJo gonna give Ryan a lot of problems. JoJo Diaz, remember that dude. He's special. I'm telling you, I think he has better skills than Canelo Alvarez. He can do more things than Canelo Alvarez can. I'm telling you, man, people sleep on JoJo Diaz. It's sad because, you know, he don't have that one-hitter quitter power. But, man, and the body punching? Shit. JoJo pulled that upset on Tevin Farmer, man. Even in that Gary Russell Jr. fight, you know, he was more defensive because Gary Russell was just letting his hands go, and he had to block a lot of punches. I have never seen JoJo is a dude. I think he fought a Russian dude as well, and I thought it was a close fight. I think he fought to a draw or something, but he really should have beaten that guy. But you know, it is what it is. JoJo's a very good fighter, man. Very, very good fighter. You know, and if he stays long enough at lightweight, I think eventually, I think I could see JoJo going up against Kambosos. I can see JoJo going up against Kambosos for one of them titles. When Devin Haney vacates, when Ryan and Tank, they move up, I think just before Shakur comes into that play, it don't matter if Shakur comes into the play, actually, because I believe the belts will be dispersed. So when Devin goes up, or whoever goes up, who is undisputed, they move up to the next level. I think once those belts are vacated, you're going to have 4 belts there. And I could see Kambosos picking up one, maybe Shakur picking up one. I could see Kambosos fighting JoJo for a belt, for example. I could see something like that happening. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Kambosos faced JoJo for a belt, that's why I say in about 2 years' time, I could see Kambosos becoming champion again. Because he's got that, I'm telling you, man, Kambosos got that skill that, you know, he could become a world champ, you know, and depending on who he's fighting, like a Kambosos versus Lomachenko fight is going to be a very competitive fight. Very competitive fight. You know, Kambosos is a real good fighter, man. I'm not going to lie to you guys. He's a really, really good fighter. It's just, you know, he was going up against Devin, so Devin made him look kind of the way how he looked. But Devin has certain attributes, like he's got a long reach, so he used his length as an advantage in that fight to control the fight, and then when he wanted to go into the pocket, he did what he wanted to do when he got into the pocket. So because of Devin's attributes and because Kambosos don't have certain skill sets to sort of neutralize those attributes, it was very, very difficult for Kambosos. And that's why, if Kambosos is going to be doing a rematch, because his game plan was kind of like to make Devin Haney come to him so he could counterpunch him, but Devin Haney systematically came at him with certain angles and certain ways he was approaching him, and so it didn't work. And Kambosos no, if he had fucked around and just flung hands like everybody was saying for him to sell out, he would have got a knock. He would have got a knockdown. So he wasn't trying to. He understood it was chess, not checkers. And just like with Tank versus Rolling, if Kambosos just went in there trying to wing, he would have gotten dropped. He would have gotten dropped because Devin's very sharp. So y'all have no idea how high level these guys are, and they know what to do. It's like Mikey Garcia versus what's his name? Mikey versus Errol Spence Jr. Y'all don't understand what's going on in that ring. Mikey had really good defense. He just couldn't get his offense off because he kept on falling short. Because Errol kept on taking the steps back that were necessary. He had the longer reach, so he just boxed him with his reach. 72-inch reach versus a 68-inch reach, 4 inches on you. Man, I'm a boxer on the outside. And when he got to the inside, he used those long forearms to collapse him, and he is controlling Mikey to some degree and pivoting around him. So Mikey couldn't get them shots off that he wanted to because when you down low, you have to if a guy's spinning this way and I try to loop a hook this way, I ain't doing shit. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to understand all of that, and it's like because a lot of people don't fight, they don't box, nothing. They can't see in space what's really fucking going on. Like they're only seeing people throwing hands. They don't understand why, and what they're doing, how they're spinning and everything, and the movement inside of there. They can't see the 3 dimensional because TV's a 2 dimensional thing. They can't see it in 3 dimensions and just how sick this shit is. And what Errol was doing, Errol's pivot work is ridiculous. And when I say pivot work, most people don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm talking about stepping around a guy. I'm not talking about circling in big circles around the ring and galloping like a fucking horse. I'm talking about where you just take a small, you spin on this. That's a fucking pivot. You understand what I'm saying? So if I'm in the trenches with you here, right, and I spin out this way, and I come here, okay, that's what a pivot is. You understand? But a lot of people don't know what hell a pivot is. Pivot is turning. You have wide pivots. You have tight pivots. You have different. It's different things. That you can do in there and how you do it. I could. So this is a simple pivot, right? Right here, right? I step around right here, right? That's a simple pivot. But I can do like this. So I can roll out around you, okay? I can roll under, out, and around you. You understand what I'm saying? I gotta be watching you all the time. Because you might be coming with a hook. You might be coming with a hook. So I roll under this hook, out, around you, and I come up the center here with an uppercut. See, you have to be able to understand that and see that in space and time. I try to talk boxing with you guys, but boxing's a great sport, man. It's a great sport, and unfortunately, if you haven't done it, you can't really see what's going on in there because it's a mixture of defense and offense. I just said that it's not defense only or offense only. The defensive maneuver was getting under the hook. It was dipping. You're dipping under the hook and throwing your hook to the body. All right? Hit and not get hit. And stepping around a guy. It's pivot work. Now, if he steps with you, then he takes away the angle. Right? So, it's boxing, man. You have to understand boxing, man. If you don't appreciate and understand and love boxing, you're wasting your fucking time watching these things, man. because you're not gonna follow what's going on. You just listen to the commentator's voice, and the commentators and they so far off from what actually is going on in there. You know, so many feints and just so many different things boxers do all the time, and you know, it's just part of boxing, and y'all, most of y'all don't even know or understand or see what's happening in there. Anyway, so like I was saying, so yeah, man, you know, Mikey Garcia, he had to do what he was doing. You know, he couldn't get the range and distance he needed to be really truly effective, and he did have good punching power. Errol had to respect that punching power. Mikey can punch, but the problem with it was he couldn't get to drop the bomb on the target. He kept on falling up short. So his defense was good, but his offense, he couldn't get his offense to reach Arrow. You know, and Arrow would try to control. He would try to control Mikey with the forearm. So, you know, you can position your opponent with your forearm. You can make a move a certain way with your forearm. See, these all these little tricks in the boxing game. You know, you can get your forearm underneath a guy's elbow, for example, or underneath a guy's arm. You can put your forearm underneath there and push him. You can push him this way. You can even push his forearm out with your elbow. It's like there's a lot of stuff going on in boxing y'all don't realize. Uh, it's an art, and you know, it, you can use your hands other than for punching. You know, even in a clinch, there's certain things that boxers do very subtly in a clinch to get not only body positioning but also to line up a certain shot for when they come out of the clinch. Because how your hands are positioned as you come out of the clinch, as the ref say, as he says, box to be able to punch a guy on the break, is how you position your hands as you're coming out. Man, there's so much shit to boxing. There's a lot to boxing, man. There's all these little details, these little details in boxing that get you, you know. There's a lot of details in boxing, man. You know. So, anyways, yeah, man. What you need in the building. So this is why a fighter like a Devin Haney or a Shakur Stevenson, you know, or Demetrius Andrade are fighters that fighters don't look forward to. Oscar Valdez didn't face Shakur at 126. You know, he ducked. You know, he kind of avoided Shakur, and when they finally faced, you know, we saw why he avoided Shakur. It was a shutout, right? It was a complete utter shutout. Shakur dropped him all kinds of shit, right? And you know, Oscar didn't. It wasn't for effort. Oscar tried his best, and you saw how Oscar's face looked like at the end of it. He looked like, you know, it looked like a butchered face, right? And we saw the same thing with Devin Haney versus George Kambosos. We saw that George Kambosos, his face was. Hold on a second, man. This. Yeah. So George Kambosos, man, with Devin Haney, same thing. His whole face looked like somebody took a knife and chopped up his face, right? And that's what happens when you're dealing with those kinds of fighters. You accumulate a lot of punishment, you know. But the only thing I didn't like was Devin was going mostly to the head. He throw one or two body shots, but he was mostly tagging Kambosos to his head. And I thought he should have gone for more body shots, especially the jabs to the body. He should have picked him off like that, set it up to land more jabs to the body. But you know, Devin Haney just wanted to get the W and to make sure he got the W in Australia. So I think he kept it basic. He kept it simple. I heard um, his trainer, what's his name? I think, man, sometimes, man. Yeah, his trainer, uh, Yoel Judah was saying, you know, keep it simple, keep it basic for now. And he did keep it basic. He started throwing in the uppercuts a little bit later on in the fight. He was throwing in the right hands. You know, he was throwing some hooks off the jab. You know, hooks to the body, double left hooks to the head and body, and he was mixing it up a little bit. But for the most part, Devin Haney was keeping it as basic as possible, as simple as possible to make sure he won cleanly and clearly, so there was no doubt in anybody's mind that he won the fight. You know, and that's basically what he did. He took precaution to make sure he was undisputed, which is fair enough. He even took off the 12th round because he just wanted to make sure he landed that. Yo, let me try and move out of here and move to a different location because this bullshit just about to. Yeah, so as I was saying, Devin Haney, man, he let me close this off. Let me get the studio. So yeah, so he basically wanted to ensure that he got the win. So he took it. He took it. He took it easy on Cambosis. And something, I'm kind of glad he didn't knock out Cambosis because Cambosis to me was a stand-up dude. Yeah, okay, everybody got certain things, but I think Cambosis is a stand-up dude. And even though Cambosos did his mind game tactics and all that other stuff, that he did, I still think that, because he gave Devin Haney a shot, and Devin Haney was absolutely grateful for that shot, that Cambosos, you got to give Cambosos some props, man, for doing that, because all the other guys didn't step up to the table. Cambosos thought he had an advantage being at home court, and he was trying to use all his advantages as best as he could, but ultimately in the end, he wasn't able to do exactly what he wanted to do. But it's all good. I'll say this. I'll say that I'm looking forward to the fights, the big fights that Devin Haney will have next, as well as the big fights in the lightweight division. Lightweight division is alive in different kinds of ways. You get some big fights like Ryan Garcia is a big, a big name in boxing and a big name in the lightweight division. And you got Tank, and I think Tank might face Ryan Garcia. I would love to see Devin facing Loma next, and then probably a Tank versus Loma fight, a Tank versus Devin, sorry, fight. And even if whoever the losers are, also the losers match up with some other guys at lightweight and face each other. I know Devin's gonna stay at lightweight maybe two or three fights, and then he's probably gonna move up to super lightweight. So we're gonna look to see what happens with Devin. I hope that Devin takes on the bigger challenges out there. If he has to rematch Cambosis, then so be it. Anyway, this is what you need in the building. I'm gonna catch you guys later. I'm coming back with another video, so stay tuned.